Welcome to another episode of the Able Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney, and today it's really exciting because this is my first installment of the Motherhood series. The Motherhood series is me bringing on a bunch of different moms in different walks of life, talking about their either pregnancy, birth experience, postpartum, and just in general being a mom. And I am so excited to have Santy from Sweet Santy on Instagram with us today. She is sharing all the things from her pregnancy experience during COVID. She shares a little bit of her birth story, and we talk a lot about epiphanies and changes and shifts that happen during postpartum. So I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. I am so excited to have Santy here because she is an amazing content creator. Started with beauty blogging, all wonderful things. Then became a small business owner and is now a mom. I love following you on Instagram. We met on Instagram, actually.
We sure did.
And I just get so much inspiration from you. You are such like a light. You are so authentic. And that's why I wanted to have you on. We're going to talk about all the things postpartum, being moms while running a business.
We sure are. And I just want to say thank you for having me because I felt like, wow, out of all the moms, all the people, like, why me? Like, why am I being graced with your airspace? So for real,
oh my gosh.
Seriously, I was like, she could have chose anybody. Like, what is special about me? So,
but I would love for you to kick it off to just like talk a little bit more about yourself. Cause that was like a very cliff note overview that I just gave. A little bit about who you are, tell the listeners, and then we can dive into all the other things.
Okay, so who am I? So I am a Chicago burb mom. Grew up in the burbs, so I'm from Chicago, born and bred. Married for the last several years. I have a newborn, kind of ish. Like what is a newborn?
I know.
Phase end? Like a year. New child, I meant to say.
Yes. Feels like a newborn sometimes.
Right? I'm my new baby. Okay. So she's like 13 months. I'm like a part-time teacher. I do my whole content creation thing. I love that. And just like, I'm calling it like simple summer. Like we're doing a simple summer over here, simple living.
I love it.
You know, yeah.
Especially in a post-COVID world, like you really want to simplify life.
Oh yeah. I feel like that kind of forced us to just like chill and like kind of put like a pause point on everything. And now I'm just like, just relaxing, you know, get my feet wet to get back out there, but you know, keeping it simple.
Totally. I mean, you've been out and about a lot lately too. I mean, you're going to Broadway shows, you're doing all the things. I love it.
Yeah, that's fun. When those like happen to pop up, those opportunities, I jump on that because as you know, like stay-at-home mom life, you know, we're just kind of like, that's my priority. That's my first time job, so to say. And then everything else, you know, like the content creation, that's like fun. And, you know, my tutoring on the side, that's extra, that goes around my orbit, my world of Simran. So, you know how that goes, right?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I mean, being a mom really changed everything for me. I feel like, what are your thoughts on that after you got pregnant, especially during COVID? How were you feeling pre having a baby?
So, gosh, I gotta like think back. So I think I got pregnant, I think around like August, because she was born in May of 2021. Yeah. So that was like what, kind of like in the thick of things, right?
Yeah.
And I had like wrapped up my last year of teaching in the classroom. I was working at a school in the city. But like from that March 2020 point, we finished out the rest of the school year remote and then had summer, got pregnant. And then it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like Aishwar couldn't come. My husband couldn't come to any of like the appointments. I think he went to like the first few, but then like that, is it the 20-week? The scan, like that major milestone appointment he couldn't come to, and like pretty much to like the end. So that was just crazy.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah. I have nothing to compare it to though. You know, like I'm sure
I was just going to say with Harper, it was so different.
Oh, it was like quote unquote normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah.
wild. Did you like
Hmm.
FaceTime with him when you were in the appointments or how?
I did. Well, for that 20 week, like he was out in the parking lot and I
Hmm.
was like FaceTiming him, but it
Yeah.
sucked. But I feel like with it being like my first pregnancy, like that the whole experience, I have nothing to
Hmm.
compare it to be like, oh, it should have been like XYZ, or like if times were, the normal, so we knew it to be, this is how it would have been. So I mean, it sucked in comparison to like what I feel like people told me, but it's
Yeah.
kind of all I knew and I made the best of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, it's
Totally.
crazy.
Yeah. And were you the type of person that read like a bunch of books before you gave birth?
Oh my God. So I am like a textbook person in theory. I like get the books. I like, and then they just sit there. I got, what is that one? That like real generic or like
Like what to
stereotypical,
expect
what to
when you're
expect. Yeah, when you're expecting. I got that one. And then like the books just sat there. I literally probably like skimmed through it, read a couple
Yeah.
pages, and then like the shit just sat there to the end all, like the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was
Yeah.
we did do a not a virtual, yeah, technically a virtual Lamaze, but it was like a YouTube
Okay.
series,
Yeah.
and that we took serious. But
Yeah.
then like everything went like, I don't want to say everything went to shit, but like
Yeah.
everything that we had quote unquote planned, I know we'll get to like the birth plan and all that,
Yes. Yes.
really just took like a left turn. So you can,
Yeah.
like in theory, you can only plan so much, I've learned, and then life will happen.
Yeah. I did not have a birth plan for either of them. And I feel like
Wow.
maybe Chris did. Like Chris was the one who was reading all the books
Good for
and was like
him.
so into it. But I don't think we had a birth plan. What was your birth plan?
Oh, the birth plan, the beloved birth plan. Okay, so my birth plan was, so my end all goal, was like end all be all, was to avoid the C-section.
Yes.
And I am not the type where like I could care less. Like I don't think I got the trophy, or I would get the trophy if I like suffered through like, I believe, sorry, I'm like a tangent person because I'm like,
No,
what do
yeah.
I want to say first with this? So technically it's still a natural birth. Like I don't get where when people say, oh, well, you had an epidural, it's not natural. Like
Mm-hmm.
no, it came out of the birth canal. That's a natural
Yeah.
birth, right?
Yeah.
So like for me it was like the goal was natural, not
Mm-hmm.
C-section. Now if like that
Mm-hmm.
happened, like yeah, I would have been devastated, like
Yeah.
truthfully speaking. But like
Yeah.
whether or not it was medicated, like to me, like I was still a winner. Like my goal
Yeah.
would have still been met had it been natural.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like open to the epidural basically is what I'm trying to say. Pitocin, right? Like that.
Yes. The
What is
Pitocin.
that?
Mm-hmm.
That is, oh my God, it's like a fog. That is the what is that medication for? To
It
help you the
like
contract.
speeds up the contractions, right?
Yeah, like I would be fine with that.
I'm not a doctor. I
I know,
have
and
no
I'm like
idea.
asking you as if we just did this yesterday. I
I
think
know.
once you go through it, like you have
Yeah.
a fog, and I don't know if it's like a let me block this like a not like a PTSD in a bad way,
Kind
but
of
almost like,
though.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember, and I do remember so vividly. And it
Yeah.
was only like a year ago, but like I could barely remember, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I totally
Right.
get that. And
Yeah.
now that you're talking about this, I did kind of have a birth plan for both of them.
well,
I feel like
what was it? Or like what snippet do you remember that it was a birth,
I
like that you have one?
I remember like for both of them, I got induced for both of them.
Okay. Okay,
But
me
it was
too.
like week of. Like I went in to see my OB and they were like, "You're kind of far enough along. If you want, we can induce you." And
How
I was
many
like,
weeks were you?
"Sure."
Mm.
It was I want to say like 39 for both of them.
Okay, that's like pretty decent. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
too premature. I feel like that they were trying to make you induce, like they weren't in a rush and it wasn't too
No.
far like late.
Yeah.
I was 41 weeks. That is long as hell. So basically, and I wasn't dilating like naturally. And so they
Mhm.
were like, okay, 40 weeks. If you don't start to dilate by 41, like we're gonna have to induce you. So I had an induction date. This is actually a sweet story of Mother's Day. So
Okay.
I had to report to the hospital Sunday, May 9th.
Hmm.
And I feel like no one knew what I was talking about that they were telling me had to get done to me. But basically, if my cervix wasn't ripening, I had to get this procedure called, and I'm getting like, wait, is this like too TMI for like the
No,
podcast?
not at
Okay,
all.
because the ladies need to know, especially if you're like
Yeah.
a first time pregnancy. because I wish someone would have talked about this in hindsight. Like, it was just so weird. All of my friends that had like had babies were pregnant. No one knew what I was talking about. But
Yeah.
so basically they were like, if your cervix does not dilate, you're going to have to get something called a cervical ripening. Hence
Okay.
why I had to go to the hospital Sunday night. So they basically use like a suppository. There's like different methods to ripen your cervix. And then the next morning was the induction
Oh my
with
gosh.
the induction is technically with the Pitocin, I think, to start your labor contractions, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think so.
Yeah.
And then they had to pop my water bag,
Okay.
which I didn't like know that was going to happen. Oh, if basically the cervical ripening would have like worked naturally on its own or progressed enough where like my water would have broke on its own, then that wouldn't have happened. The water bag
Yeah.
popping, whatever. So yeah, I had like all of that done, and it's just like crazy because, like I said, no, like, I was a first time, pregnancy, first time mom,
Yeah.
and like no one could even tell me like, oh, you'll be fine, or like, oh, I had that. Everyone was like, what are you talking about? What's a cervical ripening? I'm like
Yeah.
I'm googling so much because it's like, yeah, what is it? No one knows, and you had 3 kids and you don't know, and you've had 2, and like,
Yeah.
so that's my little pre birth story was, all those things. And it was so crazy because with the 41 weeks, I was doing everything textbook. Like, I was curb walking. I was bouncing on like not the medicine ball, that big, the
Yeah.
exercise ball.
Yeah.
I was doing that, and like nothing was
Like the
working.
spicy foods or whatever that people say
Oh
to do too.
yeah. Get close to your partner
Yeah.
thing,
Oh
like
my
do what you
gosh.
gotta do. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so, I just, yeah, I guess, but it was cool because she was born literally the day after technically my first Mother's Day with her like in me. And she was
Yeah.
like my little Mother's Day gift. So
That is so fun. So
yeah, it was
special.
cool. It was so special. Yeah, the way it
Yeah.
went down.
Well, yeah. And then immediately following that, how did you feel about postpartum?
That's like another one where like you said the word and I'm like, I have like, I'm getting like images, and then it's like, I don't remember, but I remember. And I just like,
Yeah.
really, like, do we as women like block things out because some angles of it were so traumatic that in order to like be able to do this again, if like you want a second, a third, like
Mhm.
you block it out because you don't want to remember the like quote unquote bad. Like
Yeah.
it was very hard. Like yeah, I didn't know what to expect, and you just only learn it as you're going through it.
Totally.
And I feel like, and I think one of my biggest, like, not mistakes, but like what I would do differently, I remember trying to keep my house just as clean, like when it
Hmm.
was just me and my husband, and cook just as much as when we were, living just for ourselves in the house, and basically
Hmm.
doing everything the same pre baby. And
Yeah.
like, I think I like killed myself. Like, it was
Yeah.
just, and now that I look back, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Like, if we have a
Yeah.
second kid, like, I'm ordering meals, I'm doing, I think I did takeout only like one time in like the whole time since she's been born. And it wasn't even like a money issue. Like, we do
Hmm.
enjoy to like cook at home. Like, we like home cooked. And,
Yeah.
when we go out to dinner, like, we really enjoy it because we're not ordering a bunch. Like, I don't know, but like my friend gave me a really close friend gave like a gift card for DoorDash,
Yeah.
and I ended up then redeeming it like probably like when she was 8 months old.
Oh
Like,
my
just
gosh, that's
remembering,
wild.
right? Like, it was lingering in my iMessage, and I was just scared that I was gonna lose the credit. So like I would just, yeah, I mean, postpartum, I think I made it harder on myself than it had to be for these little what is it, idiocracies, like just
Yeah.
stupid
Putting a lot of
moments.
pressure on yourself. I feel like,
Yeah, and I don't know if it was for me to feel like, oh no, like we're still rolling here as usual, like as per
mhm.
usual, or if I really genuinely like ignorantly thought like we could do it, like as if it was just like pre-baby life. And it's like, no, like our whole world changed. And like, why did I think that like my floors needed to be spotless, like freshly mopped, and look like they're freshly mopped every single moment of like our living hours in the house, and
Yeah.
like cooking
Yeah.
and serving meals to like me and my husband. Like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, I don't know. I don't know, Courtney. I'm going to do it so differently though the second time around.
Good.
And I
You
will tell
learned.
you. I sure learned.
That's
I sure did.
crazy. I
Crazy
definitely
shit,
did
right?
not cook or clean.
Right? Like, you're probably thinking like, oh my God, you're such a dummy. Like,
Oh
I
my
don't know
gosh,
what,
no. Good for
I don't
you.
know. I was a dummy. I'll say
That's
it myself.
that's hard. I just remember it being like the hardest thing ever.
Yeah. And like the physical changes, like, oh
Yeah.
my God. I got pictures on my camera roll just to prove to myself what I went through and like, the swollen
Yeah.
boobs and the whole this and the
Everything.
that, everything. And like, oh yeah,
How did you
it's
feel like mentally after you had a baby? Like, did you have any like shifts in like who you were as a person or like any epiphany changes?
I just like remember, I think I remember like the first week just being in like a complete fucking fog. And like just
Mm,
everything was kind of like slow-mo and like yeah, just like weird. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like I think it
yeah.
and I honestly physically felt, I know like you asked like more like the mental changes, but like I think like the mental is affected by like I physically felt like I had been in a car crash, like if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like literally like as if I was like hit by a car or like survived a car crash and like I was like physically recovering, like waddling, like walking like so slow, like my or like I worked out so much. Like that was a feeling like
Mm-hmm.
my legs hurt, like my body felt like crushed.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
mentally I probably just was like not all there
Yeah.
because I was recovering from my quote unquote car crash that was really like having a freaking baby, you
Yeah.
know? One thing that I wanted to talk about, like in the whole postpartum world, especially after you have a baby, like I hate to say this, but it really opened up my eyes to kind of like in a negative way, like the disappointments that you'll experience from people. And not only
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like right after you have the baby, but even like while I was pregnant, like and maybe I expect what like I would do for someone else, but I feel like there were just like a lot of like either like friends or like old coworkers or acquaintances, like people that maybe I would have expected to be there for me more than they actually were. And like I
Mm-hmm.
get it, like life is busy for everyone. And so like when I play devil's advocate with like my feelings, because I am a huge emotions person, like
Me
us
too.
Scorpios, how we
Mm-hmm.
are. We take everything to heart, even though we have like a hard exterior and we have that
Mm-hmm.
little stinger, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like as a defense mechanism, but we are all mush, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so like the whole experience, I guess, kind of like opened my eyes to like either who's really into me and who's not. Like who's really
Yeah.
into it all and who's not. I kind of like shook the tree and like all the loose fruit or like the bad apples kind of fell. And
Yeah.
like, I just feel like now it's kind of like who wants to be there will be there. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously very figuratively speaking. And like and who doesn't won't, and you'll see
Yeah.
that through action and through interest, really, like who's showing interest in your milestone moment and who's not. And and it's
Yeah.
sad, right? It's kind of disheartening,
Yeah.
and you kind of see like this milestone moment kind of like put I don't want to say people to the test, but it showed you like how different people reacted, and that like was kind of like the inadvertently was like the test that I didn't know was being presented in life, but it was. And you're kind of like, oh, okay. you
Yeah.
know
I'm so
mm,
glad you brought that up because I also felt like a shift in people in my life. And it really does show like who does show up. And
yeah,
just like the different seasons of life, like what is presented and how things like shift and change. I'm becoming like much better at going with the flow. And I never used to be
yes,
like that. I never used to be that like that. So I feel like children have really brought that out of me.
yeah, I feel the same way as far as like having patience, well, more patience for sure, that's like a given, but like the go with the flow, like you're saying, as far as like let it go if it comes
Mm-hmm.
back, if it, just being like
Mm-hmm.
okay with the fluidity of the people, the situations, the
Yeah.
experiences, because I too, like I used to think like, oh, that person, they're a ride or die, or it's like this, it's gonna be like this forever. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I was like naively optimistic. And now I kind of like I've gone through the devastations with like
Yeah.
scenarios, situations, people that now like I am so happy to say that like it doesn't phase me as much. Like when
That's
it
amazing. Yeah.
happens, I'm kind of like I don't know if I'm like numb to it as like a coping mechanism. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
ricochets on off of me, and I'm like, okay, like like I kind of laugh at it more. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the pregnancy, the birth, and like this whole moment kind of gave me that perspective of just like be more fluid with the changes, because yeah, like
Yeah.
I've had enough. I've had enough to
Yeah.
like, and now I just don't let it bother me as much. Like
Hmm.
I just like don't give a shit anymore. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just more like centering yourself around your new world of like you're like, this is like my core, me, my child, my husband,
Hmm.
my immediate family, that like I don't have time for anyone's BS. Like
Yeah.
whether it be like the work world, like friends, old friends, maybe their dramas, like I cut everything loose that was like weighing me down.
That's amazing.
I was just like, okay, like I don't have the mental or emotional bandwidth to
Yeah.
put up with stuff that just, so like now I just really live simple and happy and just like look for the small joys, and really like my whole world is this, like doing this job. And I know like I kind of have dubbed it, like if I were an author, my book would be titled like The First Five, if it was about like, having a child. Like the first five I reference to like the first 5 years of their life before they hit kindergarten.
Hmm.
And I was a kindergarten teacher previous to this stay-at-home mom life. So like, yeah, like those first 5 years, I'm not going to get back. She will go off to kindergarten and, meet the teacher that I was, so to say. And like, I just know how fast that time goes.
Hmm.
And once it's gone, and that's why I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. I'd always envisioned it this way.
Hmm.
That if I had children, if I had the privilege to be able to
Hmm.
stay at home with her, because I know that there are probably moms that like would want to be the stay-at-home mom and they, cannot. They have to go out and work. Or there are moms that, want to work and they couldn't picture doing this like day in and day out. And like there's no
Hmm.
right or wrong way to do it, but like this
Yeah.
is my story, obviously. Like you're having me on, and like I just feel like if I was going to have a kid, I want to be with her day in and day out. I didn't see myself even as like a classroom teacher. Like I would leave my house at like 6:30 in the morning, come back at like 5:30. Like I just didn't see myself being away having my mom or someone else raise her for like the 11-12 hour day, see her for an hour or two in the evening, and then just like do it all over again the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is my life, this is my priority, and I'm blessed to be able to do it, because like I said, it's a privilege that I have, that I, am able to do this.
Absolutely. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
perfect way to say it because I feel the same exact way. And we also get to have fun side hustles while we're doing it.
Oh, I know, because that's the thing. Like I feel like my identity outside of motherhood, or like right before this, was like Miss S. Like I'm the teacher,
Hmm.
right? Like that was my 9 to 5, so to say, like my work job. And then, this was something that I always knew I would want to do. And if I got pregnant, so it's like I still tutor on the side, and my small business of tutoring. And you had mentioned earlier with the small business thing, which I love
Hmm.
that me and you have that in common.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we have so many connection points. Like first of all, I want
Hmm.
to say, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I knew that
No,
this would be like a spicy podcast, only because also we're both Scorpios.
we
So
are.
I feel like we're kind of eccentric. We're kind of like, I don't know, we're kind of out there,
Yeah.
me and you. So
Scorpio
like
sisters.
Scorpio sisters, stay-at-home moms, like small business side hustle. So like yeah, like maybe that was meant to be why like you chose me
Yeah.
as well, because I was just like, yeah, I really connect to you on like those little titles, those little, that encompass
Hmm.
who we are all together as people.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice for new moms that kind of want to do the same thing
Okay.
and want to be a stay-at-home mom, but also want to have a side hustle? Because
The
I think there is a
transition.
lot of like group of women that are becoming entrepreneurs now.
Oh yeah, you see that. I feel like I see that like on social media and stuff. Like whether,
Hmm.
you're the stay-at-home mom who wants like another purpose like within your role, and you're like, yeah, I want to do something, or I want to have a passion, or like,
Hmm.
and yeah, I've been seeing that a lot. So what would my advice be to you ladies out there? Well, I would say first of all, figure out what it is that you want to also do outside of this, that you feel like passionate about enough that you will actually want to like carry it through, maybe like more than like a few months, or like you see it growing.
Hmm.
um Figure out like how you're going to manage your time with it, or how you're going to get support for you to be able to do this side hustle. whether that's, getting an in-law or a sibling to come over and watch your kid, or a babysitter. Like, how are you going to actually bring your plan to fruition?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is hard. It is a hard juggle. I currently only tutor a couple of days a week, and like it's a big production to get out the door. Like, I'm with Simran, then I might get some things ready for my mom. My mom is the primary caregiver outside of me. So like she'll come over, and I have to kind of brief her on what we're doing, or like, does she have to eat? Does she need to be changed? Did she just wake up from a nap? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's to come? And I have to get myself ready for my lessons and my students. And like, yeah. And as a stay-at-home mom, it's like, you have to like, it has to be worth your while. You have to like enough what your little side hustle is to make it be worth your while, basically. Is
Totally.
what I'm trying to say. Cause it's a lot of work. It's a lot of freaking work to get myself out the darn door. So it
Mm-hmm.
has to be like, something
Because your mind's on
sustainable.
everything else. You're thinking about Simran, your husband, and preparing your mom. Like, yeah, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when I'm, trying to do my preparations for my side hustle, I'm doing it a long while the primary job, which is taking care of my daughter. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot, and I would just say figure out like your network of support, and like logistically, objectively figure out how you are going to carve out the time for this, not to like take off like a rocket and then like fizzle, like, be like a sad fizzle out. Basically, you have to like advocate for yourself and ask for the help. Even if you have the supportive spouse or supportive network, whoever you live with, they might be nice as pie, but if you don't tell them like, hey, I have XYZ to do, can you do bedtime because I have to do this? They may just genuinely not know and like not do it, not because they're like not supportive or
Yeah.
just want to go do something else. They just like don't know, like they need some direction. So
Mm-hmm.
I say
That
like
is
speak
great
up,
advice.
right? Like
Yes.
speak up.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself. I am terrible at that. So I needed to hear that. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. And like, I'm always like, I feel like I always think of things from like a compassionate, like empathetic lens. Like, maybe
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't speak up because I don't know, you've been in environments conducive not to speak up, or how
Mm-hmm.
you were raised, or your
Yeah.
just your character of being. So like I say that, and then I kind of feel bad, like, ooh, like it may not be so easy for someone as easy as I'm just saying, oh, just speak up, because there's like so many reasons why you may not as a person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think about that. Like I'm also thinking of it from another lens, but I have a very like big personality. I've always been a big
Mm-hmm.
talker and just kind of expressive. So it's easy for me to speak up, but not everyone, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, is like that. So
Yeah.
disclaimer. Yeah.
What okay, one other question before we wrap this up. What is
Yeah.
your favorite way to self-care? Like give yourself self-care, because I feel like that is so important for moms, and a lot of the time our own self-care gets like pushed to the side because we're so focused on everyone else.
Okay. So this is also bad advice. So my self-care is usually my vices. So I love to eat. I love to go out to eat with
Mhm.
my friends. I'm a very indulgent person, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it is like the Scorpio in me, where we're kind of like all or nothing, like very
Mhm.
drastic. So when I like want to do something, I kind of go all out. So
Yeah.
like I will go have like out to dinner with my friends, and like as if we're like taking each other out on a date. Like we're splurging left and right, like we're
Mhm.
ordering everything off the menu. Or I like to go out a lot and like socialize
Mhm.
with other people, or get my nails done. So like that's kind of my self-care, or kind of like all my little vices.
I love that.
Right? My Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts, like people that follow
Oh,
me
you're
know
a big Dunkin' girl.
oh my
Yes.
God. Yeah. So like my self-care are probably things that I should not be like that. Those should be my restraints. But I'm so comfortable, I guess, at this point in my life with like knowing myself, that I'm just like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the deal. Like that, I'll admit it.
And do what you want to do. Like I love that about you.
I know, but I need to get better, because like I said, I'm so overindulgent that like, self-care, usually you hear like I work out, like I do yoga, and it's like that's the shit
Mhm.
that I should be doing. Instead, I'm like calling my friend, like, let's go get like a nice pizza. Or like I'm getting my coffee for like the fifth time this
I
week.
love
And it's
that
like,
though.
no, it should be like I I need to drink more water. I need to move my body, make my coffee at home. Like those are the answers I should be giving you, but like I don't.
You're being
So
realistic. I
being,
appreciate that.
yeah, I'm being freaking honest. Like,
Yeah.
hey, by 35, like if I'm not going to be honest with myself at this point or other people, I'm wasting
Then what's
time.
the point?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I have blossomed. So this is a real deal.
I love that.
Well, this was so fun. Thank you for having me. And
Thank you
I
so
hope,
much for coming.
yeah, I hope that it helps some of the mamas out there,
At least feel related to. Yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag the raw and real.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.